Hello, welcome, beautiful being. Thank you so much for being here with me today. We are diving into one of my absolute favorite topics, which is menstruation. This is a topic that I truly wish had more light and more love and more truth around in our mainstream society, and I do trust that women are reclaiming the magic of menstruation and coming back home to the truth, and that we will see that as we move through time. That is my prayer and my trust. So, to do my part in helping to share some wisdom that I've learned and embodied about menstruation, I'd like to share 3 toxic, outdated, unnecessary programs and beliefs about our menstrual time that I truly believe need to be seen, right? Because until we bring awareness to something, it can't change. So to be seen and to be consciously released, composted, sent back to the earth, transmuted, and rebirthed as the truth. Menstruation is beautiful. Menstruation is beautiful. And so I hope that in this video you can perhaps reflect on some of the beliefs that you might hold around menstruation that might not even come from you, but that you've internalized through culture that may have a negative effect on how you relate to your menstrual time, and start to reframe those beliefs so that you can truly believe and feel in every cell of your being that menstruation is beautiful. So, toxic program number 1, that menstruation is something to be hidden. It's something to keep hush-hush, to be taboo. Something that we don't talk about, we don't discuss. It's just that thing that happens over there that nobody really wants to deal with. When we treat something that way, then we automatically start to have shame about it. We start to have a disconnection around it, especially when it's something so integral to the way that our bodies function. This is something that happens for most women every single month of a huge chunk of her life. How many cycles each of us has throughout our lifetime, I don't know an exact number, but if it's happening almost every month, every year, from maybe about ages 12-ish to 50-ish, that's maybe 40-ish years of our lives that we spend having a regular menstrual cycle. So to have that be something that we push away and almost demonize as if it's a curse, and I'll get to that one in a bit, how do you think that is supposed to make us feel? And I would invite you to just consider, what were you taught about menstruation when you were first growing up and stepping into that part of your embodiment as a being and as a girl stepping into becoming a woman? I know that for me, I didn't really learn much about it. I had, grown up in the typical public school system in the United States, and we had sex ed and health class, which in my opinion taught me very little to nothing about true health and wellness and embodiment. And the education that I remember was basically like, this is a tampon, this is a pad, you're gonna bleed, good luck, deal with it. That's basically all that I got. And I remember being separated. The boys and the girls were separated, and the girls watched their videos and the boys watched their videos. And it was like this one day where it was like, we're talking about periods, and then that's it. And then, you go into the girls' bathroom, and like there's the little box that you can like pay for to get a tampon or whatever. And maybe it was like, oh my gosh, I'm bleeding, and like I have to go ask a friend, like, do you have a tampon? Like stuff like that, just so hush hush. I remember my first menstruation. My parents were divorced, and so I would go back and forth from my mom's and dad's houses. And of course, I just so happened to be with my dad during my first menstruation. Love my dad, but we didn't really have that type of relationship where I was talking to him about my womb. He, of course, we've actually had conversations about this in more recent years, and he said, I would have supported you more with that if I had known how, right? But, I remember my mom kind of like texting her and her saying like, sorry, like, good luck, There was no celebration, there was no initiation, there was no honoring of, wow, you've been a girl, and now this huge process just opened up in your body and you're stepping into a whole new version of yourself. Let's celebrate you and give you some embodied womanly wisdom. There was none of that for me. And so I invite you to consider and reflect on what was your experience. Of course, everybody's different, but a lot of us have some sort of story where there wasn't much celebration, if any, and maybe even shame and discomfort and embarrassment. And so we learn from a very young age that this is just something that happens to us that's kind of unfortunate, and it causes a burden, and that we have to just deal with it. Like, now you have to figure out how to put in a tampon, which I'll maybe save that for another video about, all the toxins and poisons that are in the conventional menstrual products. And, we're taught, here, put a tampon in or wear a pad, and you have to figure out how to deal with that with your clothes. And if you're going to wear a pad, now it looks like you're wearing a diaper, and you need it's like this a nuisance that we have to deal with. But we're not taught these sacred and loving ways that we can care for our bodies and just make it normal. Like, what if it was just taught that it's totally normal, and boys learned about it, and everybody talked about it, and it was something that was celebrated in the family, and there's a beautiful, maybe a little celebration or a little ritual, which could look so different for everyone. But just as an example, maybe the young girl gets red roses and, some chocolates and a card and, I don't know, a special beverage, and her mom sits down with her and tells her about her experience menstruating, and here are the, products that you can use, aka menstrual underwear and different things that don't have toxins and chemicals, etc., right? Where you're just initiated into this sisterhood and this homecoming of like, welcome to being a woman and all the beauty and blessings that it has to offer. You now have the capacity to create another human life. What a divine miracle. Imagine if that's how we talked about it. Imagine if every girl felt a sense of, excitement, like, wow, I'm gonna get my period, I'm gonna become a woman, and there's responsibility and power and magic in that. That would be such a different world. And so it's not to, we can take the things that we don't like in the world and we can get upset about them. And sometimes it's important to have that bit of anger just as we realize the, I can't even say it. It can be, of course, reasonable to have our emotions and have anger, but that's not going to necessarily solve the problem. So we bring awareness to these things. We recognize, okay, this is how it's been. It's not great. Let's create a new story. So you have the power right now to create a new story for yourself. Maybe you didn't have the best time as a child with your menstruation. So sit with that, grieve that, process that, do whatever you need to do to integrate that. And now move forward with okay, how can I now celebrate myself as a bleeding woman? And I personally love inviting in, a sensory experience to embody and feel things through ceremony, through ritual, through things that help me to feel it on a somatic level. So like I mentioned earlier, maybe as a way to celebrate yourself during your next menstrual cycle, maybe you buy yourself a red rose and do something to acknowledge that you're a beautiful bleeding woman and this is a gift. Number 2 of our toxic beliefs that we are composting together as women is that during menstruation, you should keep going, keep doing, keep performing as normal. I have a lot to say about this, so let's see what comes through. You know those tampon commercials where you see the woman literally running a marathon and it's like Tampax or Always or whatever, and it's telling you how you should and can just keep going and doing everything as normal because look, we've created this great product for you that goes into your vagina and absorbs all your blood. Don't worry that it's filled with a bunch of toxic chemicals, and don't worry if maybe you don't really feel like running or doing things as normal because you're literally bleeding. Just keep on going because you're just as good as the men and go prove yourself. There's a lot here, right? So in this system, I'm going to call it patriarchal system. A lot of people don't like the word patriarchy, whatever. I don't mean it to say that men are always anti-women or whatever, however people sometimes think of patriarchy meaning. All I mean is that feminine and masculine energies exist within everything, and patriarchy is a system in which the masculine energy has decided it is more important, more valuable, better than feminine energy, and thus suppresses feminine energy. But this is a system that happens within all beings. So it's not like men are patriarchal and women are the victims. It's just that this is a system of control that's prevalent within our humanity right now, and it's up to us to dissolve it by healing and reconnecting to the sacred feminine. So when we have this system that basically tells us masculine is superior, feminine is inferior. So if you want to be successful, if you want to be good enough, if you want to be praised and valued in society, then you better focus on your masculinity. You better perform, you better do, you better achieve, you better be the best, you better always be going and doing. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a place for all of that. There's a place for achievement and creating outwardly and doing and pushing forth and coming up with new ideas and taking action. Masculine energy is amazing and beautiful, and we need it. But we have to have a balance. So if we're always doing that and we don't take the time to rest, to go inward, to soften, to surrender, to release, to go inwards and downwards and take a pause, then we burn ourselves out. And as women, we have this beautiful feminine flow happening within our beings constantly. Men have cycles too, but they're more linear in the way that they function with their hormones. They're more moving forward in a straight line. Whereas women, our hormones are fluctuating and moving a lot all throughout the cycle. And we literally go through this flow of, moving through the follicular phase in the beginning of the cycle after menstruation, where we're preparing the egg and we have more estrogen. It rises to sort of this peak of ovulation where we release this egg, and then we end up releasing into the luteal phase if we don't have fertilization. And then there's more progesterone and et cetera, moving sort of more inwards and downwards with our energy down to sort of the bottom of the cycle, if you will, if you think of it as sort of this looping energy. moving down into menstruation, when we really, our hormones sort of even out and we're just really letting go before that next cycle, when the estrogen is rising again, etc. I'm not going to go so deep into the hormones. You can Google that if you want to see a graph and a picture of how the hormones generally function throughout the cycle. But you can see we're not linear. There are these 4 distinct phases of our cycle: follicular, ovulation, luteal, menstruation. So we are not meant to be constantly going, constantly doing, constantly achieving. Even if you are not choosing to have a child, your body has that capacity. It's designed with that capacity, which is an incredible miracle. And so your body is not functioning in a patriarchal paradigm. Your body is like, I don't know what that nonsense is, but I'm over here having my cycle, my feminine flowing cycle. And so we can choose if we want to align with that, the gifts of that become part of the beauty of that, or push it away. So if society is constantly telling us to keep going, keep doing, keep achieving, then we naturally disconnect from what our body is trying to tell us. When we're bleeding, our body is literally telling us, stop, rest, go within, take a pause, be internal, come down to the earth. So imagine if you took off that pressure, that instead of telling yourself, I have to keep going, and instead you just said, oh, this is my sacred time of pausing and resting and releasing. Imagine the shift that happens with that simple thought alone. Imagine if the mainstream media weren't filling us with images like, go be a superwoman and run a marathon with a tampon in, but instead it was saying, beautiful woman, welcome to your beautiful time of letting go and surrendering. Here is a soft bed filled with red silk sheets and pillows and a room filled with roses and candles, and here is your portal to rest and release and receive. In many ancient cultures, there was a tradition of having a moon lodge or a moon hut, moon temple. There's different terms, but basically a sacred space where women would gather together and bleed. And they would not be performing their typical tasks. They would be focused on this menstrual time, and it was actually seen as this inner shamanic process where women would receive insights and wisdom and visions for themselves as well as for the entire tribe. So that's the power that we actually hold during our menstrual time. If we go within, we actually have the power to receive beautiful, creative ideas, visions, wisdom, insight. But how can we tap into that aspect of our beings when we're just driving in traffic, going to our jobs, performing all of our regular tasks? And I understand that our life might not be set up in the way where we can just say, okay, I'm bleeding now, goodbye, I'm gonna go retreat into my temple and see you next week. That might be the goal of something we can work towards, but I totally understand that most of us don't have that capacity. But if you have the understanding that it is important for you to rest and that you have a right to rest during that time, then you might make subtle shifts in your life that accommodate for that and that make a big difference. So for instance, maybe you don't go out with friends or, schedule certain meetings or do certain things that you might do when you're in the program of whatever, every day is just life and I just do it no matter what I'm feeling in my body. But you say, this is my time. Just like if you were say you were sick with a cold, you might make certain adjustments and say, oh, I'm going to take a day off, or, oh, I'm not really feeling up to, our meeting today, or let's reschedule, or I'm just going to, take some time to get some extra sleep. I'm going to eat good, nourishing soup. I'm going to do something relaxing, take a bath, etc. It's about giving yourself the permission. So a lot of the problem comes because we don't give ourselves permission. We tell ourselves, this is what I'm supposed to do to be a good girl, to be successful. I'm just supposed to keep going and keep doing. But if you realize that's a false program, you're a divine woman, you have the right to fucking rest for a few days every month. Then what might you do differently to allow yourself more space? And that might be literally just taking an extra hour before bed to lay down, place your hands over your womb space, play some relaxing music, maybe do a little meditation, maybe a little self-massage, maybe work with some essential oils, do some journaling, something that just feels nourishing for you. Maybe it means that, if your menstrual cycle falls on, say, a weekend or a time where you would already have the day off, maybe you tell your friends or your partner, or, depending on your life situation, I get that this can be more or less simple, but how can you honor yourself and your own boundaries and needs enough to work with the people around you to give you more space to go within and honor your body? Maybe it's telling your partner, hey, could you cook for me today? Could you rub my feet? Could you hold me in bed for 20 minutes and place your hands on my womb? Simple things that we just might not think of because we're not conditioned to believe that we deserve it. But if you flip the script and realize you're a divine woman who literally has the capacity to create and birth life through your womb, and you're in your sacred time of menstruation and letting go and literally bleeding from your uterus, that you deserve to have a couple days to chill. I could go off on a rant on that forever, but I hope that plants some good seeds for you. Okay, false belief number 3. And I touched on this a little bit before, but that menstruation is a curse. And I just invite you to really sit with what that feels like in your body. For the system at large to paint the picture that your womb going through her natural process as a part of the cycle of your capacity to birth another human being on this planet, to tell you that that is a curse, to me is so twisted, so ridiculous, and such a sign that we have been deeply disconnected from the wisdom that rests within our wombs. So the full switch on this, please say this, write this down, shout it from the rooftops, whatever you need to do. Menstruation is a blessing. Menstruation is a blessing. Now, you might feel like your menstruation is a curse because maybe you get really bad cramps. Maybe you feel horrible during your period. Maybe you literally feel within your body that you are cursed through your blood because of how much agony you go through. And what I would say to this is that it is a journey of healing. I deeply, deeply believe that your body was designed not to feel that type of pain during bleeding. And that bleeding can actually be a blissful, beautiful, pleasurable experience. So, this is a huge topic in itself, and it's very nuanced because it really depends on each woman's unique experience to her own blood and how that shows up for her. So if you are a woman who gets cramps, I would really invite you to sit with that. And just even think of that language that I just spoke, get cramps. Because we often think of symptoms as happening to us. Oh, I get this thing happens to me. Think of it instead, your womb is communicating to you. Your womb is speaking to you. Pain is usually when the body is screaming at us, trying so hard to get us to listen. And I deeply believe that so much of the issue around cramps can be resolved through rest, through actually tuning into your womb and giving yourself space to be present with your womb. So I'll touch on cramps a little bit more, and some things that I would really suggest to you if you do get cramps, and think of your bleed as a curse because of that. So, number one, nourishment and hydration. Of course, this is so vital and so important and has a huge effect on literally all the processes of our bodies. There's no way that our bodies can function properly in any sense of any of our organs, any of our tissues, any of our processes if we're not properly hydrated and if we're not properly nourished. Hydration is one of the primordial things that I work with whenever I work one-on-one with women or even in groups. Drinking enough water, and not just any water, especially not tap water. Drinking pure, clean, fresh water. I have so much to say about water. I'm going to save that for another time. But really making sure you're getting enough high quality, blessed, good water flowing through your body, especially if you have cramps. And really good, nourishing, healthy foods. And then the second thing that I touched on is giving yourself that space to be present with your womb and breathe into her. We hold so much constriction in our bodies through lack of breathing fully into our beings. And we tend to breathe really shallowly only up in our chest. So breathing down into the womb. Obviously, you can't actually breathe in your womb. You breathe through your lungs, right? But we can expand our bellies so that on the inhale, the belly is coming out. On the exhale, the belly is gently falling in towards the spine. And you can place the hands over your belly, placing your hand over the womb, and literally feel your belly, feel your womb push into your hand as you inhale, and then draw it back in. And also notice as you do that, you do have constriction around your womb. Are you wearing tight pants? Even your underwear, are they pushing in even a little bit? Are you pushing in to your womb space? Is there any tightness digging in to your womb, right? That's another thing that we're conditioned to believe, is that we're supposed to be skinny. Our bellies are supposed to be flat. And so we tend to suck in and only breathe up here. So there's no flow, there's no circulation happening in the pelvic bowl. So start bringing those deep, conscious, expansive breaths into the womb. Placing your hands there, bringing warm, loving touch. Your hands are extensions of your heart space. So offering love from your heart, flowing into your hands and bringing that loving energy into your womb. And I truly believe that with that as a practice, good hydration, good food, presence, deep breaths, non-restrictive clothing, loving touch, that so many of those symptoms can fall away. And giving yourself that permission to take a sacred pause. Your bleeding time is literally a mini death, therefore a rebirth. You are shedding the old. Your womb is letting go of an old cycle, shedding the menstrual lining, letting go. You're, in a way, dying. Give space for that process. Let yourself go within to your own inner cave. And then through that, you literally are rebirthing yourself. Your womb is creating herself anew again, every single cycle. So honor that every cycle you have this sacred opportunity to die and be reborn. And see how that shifts your relationship to your blood. There's so much more to be said about this topic, so many more ways that we can honor ourselves during our bleeding time. I really hope that these little nuggets of wisdom support you. I'd love to hear what resonates with you. How do you honor your blood? What's coming up for you? Please comment below, share with me. I love to hear about your experience and support you in any way that I can. If this is something that you'd like to dive deeper into on a personal level, I would love to support you. I offer one-on-one coaching, and you can always reach out to me by sending me an email. And the links for that, as well as my website, are down below, so you can learn more about my offerings and connect in with me. I am sending you so much love and so many blessings to your beautiful womb and your sacred menstrual time. Much love.